Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's risk reduction class, where we are going to discuss some a new law that went into effect. Most of you are aware of it, and some of you are dealing with it, and that has to do with digitally altered images. And then a couple of new forms and a few revision forms. We'll talk about additional forms in a few weeks at another class, but there's one brand new form that is going to be required by our brokerage. Most brokerages are going to require the form. It's a result of the focus on agent compensation and compensation transparency. So let's get right into the class today. Let me see if I can open my uh, screen here, share. Okay. Everybody see my screen?
It's loading. Yep, there it is.
All right, there we are. All right. All right, we're ready to go. So as always, don't hesitate to reach out to me at any time if you have a question, a problem, you just want to talk about anything at all relative to real estate, especially uh, transactional issues or sales issues. Best way to reach me during business hours is with my direct line there on the screen. I open my email up when I get into the office, and it's pretty much open all the time. It's pretty rare that I close my email, but for example, right now it's closed because I'm doing a presentation, but it'll be out all the time. So I'm usually pretty responsive to emails. And then finally, weekends and evenings, call me. You can either call me or text me at my cell number. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you call me during the day at my cell number, I will notice it eventually and will call you back. So if that's the number you want to use, that's okay. It's just that I'm kind of old school, and so I'm still pretty much married to my office landline. So anyway, all right. So let's get into today's class. We're going to talk about, first of all, digitally altered images. So, what is a digitally altered image? We sent a little flyer out that previewed this class, and so some of you probably saw it, and so I'm going to run through it here in this class and then give you a little bit of additional information. So, a digital altered image is any image that adds, removes, or changes the elements in the image. And it's including but not limited to fixtures, furniture, and appliances. That furniture is an important word. This is right out of the Civil Code. This is a new law. It went into effect January 1 of this year. It's in effect right now. So when you digitally stage a property, that comes under the legal definition of an altered image. And so all the staging that you would do to make it enhance, excuse me, enhance the property, you need to disclose that you've altered the images by plugging in the furniture. Same goes with a fire in the fireplace, believe it or not. If the photo doesn't have a fire in the fireplace, you've enhanced or added to a fixture, and you've put a fire in that fireplace digitally. You want to disclose that, which is sort of a big reach for the law, but that's what the law does say. Anything you do to the flooring and the walls, any change in paint color, any landscaping. I guess agents sometimes add landscaping, improve the look of the landscape, turn the brown grass into green grass. That is a digitally altered image. So you would have to abide by the law. I'm going to talk about what you have to do here in a minute. Elements outside of or visible from the property also, if you change that in any way. It includes but is not limited to street lights and utility poles. Common, I guess, to take out a utility pole in the background, or a street light that's sort of interfering with the look of the property. That's a digitally altered image. If you remove it, you have to adhere to this code. Any change in the views, any change in the neighboring properties, anything at all. What is not digitally altered? And this is, it takes a little, it's not that complicated. It's basically a common photo editing adjustment to the photo. You're not really changing what's in the photo, you're adjusting the look of the photo. So it's such things as improving the lighting, it's sharpening the image. I guess there's technology. You can take a blurry picture and sharpen it. I've got one of my slides I didn't realize was kind of blurry. One of the forms in your handout's a little blurry. I don't know why it printed that way, but that's the BRBC. I guess there's technology. You can actually sharpen that image up. White balance. That's makes the colors, balances the colors out, starting with the white balance. And of course, straightening or cropping. Some lenses will cause the sides to fall away of a photo, and then there's technology to straighten that out, of course. The exposure, you overexposed it or underexposed it, you can edit it. That is not digitally altered. Now, what does the law cover? Who does the law cover? Any real estate broker or agent, or anyone acting on behalf of the agent or the broker. So your TCs, your marketing people, any private company that does any marketing for you, uh, prepares any photos for you, they are also covered by this law, not just agents. And what does the law require? This is probably the real important part of this little part of the presentation. It requires, number one, a statement on or immediately adjacent to the image that states that the image has been altered, digitally altered, or AI altered. And there's two things you have to do. And not only do you have to make a statement that the image has been altered, you have to provide the unaltered version of the image. And you can do that in two ways. So 2A would be providing a link to a website URL or a QR code that displays the unaltered image. Now that website or URL has to be available to the public and cannot be password protected. So I thought about doing something like that with our Agent Hub to help you, but we can't do that because Agent Hub requires a password. And so the thought occurred to me, and a lot of you probably have already figured things out that are way beyond what I'm thinking of. But you can get websites for property addresses. Sometimes agents do that as part of their marketing. You can get a URL for a property address, and then people can access that. So you could put the unaltered images on that URL or website. Or you can include the unaltered image adjacent to the altered image in the marketing piece or the posting. For example, the MLS. Now, interestingly, I have San Diego MLS. I'm not positive about CR MLS, but San Diego MLS is now going to allow you to add URLs to the photos underneath not actually a watermark on the photo, but under the photo. And so those of you members of the San Diego MLS, there's a little tutorial available on how to do that. So I was surprised on doing that because one can imagine those URLs and website links are going to get broken. They're going to expire. They're going to get old. I don't know how they're going to do that. And the conventional wisdom prior to me discovering that the San Diego MLS was allowing this is that MLSs don't want a lot of broken links and expired links and like that within the MLS. So I didn't think they would allow you to do it. I thought you'd almost have to uh, put the image in the MLS. But no, they are allowing you to put links in alongside your photos. So you have to do one of those two things. In addition to stating the image is altered, you have to make the unaltered image, the version of that image, available to the public immediately adjacent to the altered image. Now, when does this law take effect? Well, the law takes effect already. It's January 1st. So the law is already in effect. So starting yesterday, uh, make sure that any digitally altered image, and that's on any marketing piece, print or digital. So your flyers, and if you have alternate images on the flyer, include a link on that flyer, print it on that flyer, a QR code or something like that, where they can see the unaltered image. Now, a summary, just to sort of wrap this up. Think of it as a two-part rule. You have two things you have to do when you alter an image. Anytime you alter an image, these two things. One is disclose. So part one's disclose. So a reasonably conspicuous disclosure stating that the image has been altered. So you have to disclose, and two, show the original. Display the original, the unaltered image, either adjacent to the altered image or on a publicly accessible website URL, or you can use a QR code as well. So the simple test. So what is, do I have to disclose this? I'm tweaking this photo a little bit. Is this a digitally altered photo that is covered by the law, or am I just editing this photo in a typical photo editing fashion to enhance the photo a little bit? So there is a pretty simple way to look at this. Are you making the photo look better? Or are you making the property look better? That's really the distinction. If you're making the photo look better, then the law doesn't cover it. And then I just covered some of the things that people can do to photos to make that photo itself look better, improve the lighting, the sharpness, cropping it. I'm making the photo look better. But if I'm doing anything to make the property look better, I'm improving the color of the lawn, I'm changing the worn out carpet to new carpet, I'm staging the property, I'm putting a fireplace in the property. See, that's as much as putting a fireplace in the fire, fire in the fireplace, I'm sorry. You wouldn't think you'd have to do that. Yeah, you are, bro, because you're making the property look better. It looks nicer with a little fire in the fireplace than the property would look with just a cold, empty fireplace. You're not improving the photo. You're not making the photo look better. You're making the property look better. So if you're changing the property, you must disclose, number one, and then number two, add a true to life image in some fashion to your marketing piece or your MLS posting. All right. So some simple disclaimer language. This is some suggestions. I actually, a good attorney friend of mine wanted to be sure that I was aware of this and that all of our agents would be aware of this. And so she's actually provided this. She and her legal team brainstormed things that agents could say to better state that the image has been altered. So for virtual staging, you could say virtually staged. Some elements have been digitally added. So again, back to that fireplace thing. I don't know why I'm so stuck on that, but it just surprised me that most attorneys believe that the adding the fire is covered. There is a little bit of disagreement in car legal even, but the attorneys, the higher up attorneys, the ones I know well, or don't know them well, but I mean, I've dealt with them for a long time. They believe the fireplace enhancement is comes under the law. So for landscaping or views, you could say digitally enhanced landscaping views have been enhanced. For digital renovations, you're changing the paint color, improving the flooring, you're updating the amenities. Digitally altered finishes, paint, flooring, whatever you change, you could state that in the parentheses. Shown are not as is. And then finally, for general use, for removing objects, that sort of thing, you could say this image has been digitally altered. So those are some simple languages to use to disclose the enhancement. All right, so now let's talk about a few new and revised forms. And I think I'm making great time here. This is good news. We'll have time for questions if we have any. So, first, before I get into the form itself, a few words about compensation transparency. So the focus on compensation continues, seller side and buyer side. And, the old adage, any publicity is good publicity. That may not necessarily be true. Plaintiffs' attorneys are still trolling for failure to adequately disclose compensation, sources of compensation, who's paying the compensation. And that can be problematic regarding not only the settlement, but future problems. Uh, the regulatory agencies, including the DRE, but the legislature uh, and the agencies that monitor businesses, profession code, who watch that, they're now paying far more attention than they ever did before about agent compensation. There, the prevailing wisdom is that for a long time we were hiding who was paying us, and the person who actually uh, might be, I don't want to use the word harmed, but affected, that's a better word, affected by the fact that an agent's getting compensation from somebody somewhere. The person who might be affected by that may not have been aware of that, and that may have affected their ability to negotiate what they're trying to negotiate. So, you're trying to negotiate, you're the seller, you're trying to negotiate a commission with your agent, and the agent is paying a referral fee as well. So now you sort of you kind of negatively or reverse affected. The agent's probably unwilling to reduce the commission as much as the principal might want to, because the agent knows, well, if I cut my commission, I'm already paying a fee to somebody else, a referral, so I can't really reduce my commission as much. And the public is not aware of that, and the regulators and the plaintiffs' attorneys believe the public's at a disadvantage. So interestingly enough, there's a very enhanced focus on referral fees that are legal. Some referral fees are illegal, always have been illegal, but the legal referral fees are now being scrutinized. And it's not so much they want to eliminate them, they being the regulators, they just want to make sure that the public is aware that referral fees are being paid. And I'll get into that a little bit, but there is a real focus on compensation and the transparency surrounding compensation. Is the agent, is the brokerage fully transparent? And I even talked to some agents, nobody on this call, but I've talked to some agents, and they still use phrases like, well, I don't want my client to know. And folks, that is really looking backwards. That is head in the sand. We are far removed from those days where we could hide from our clients the fact that we're receiving some compensation or how much compensation we're getting from another source. Uh, so that's, kind of keep that in mind as we go forward. Now, like I said a moment ago, there's been a new focus by the regulators on making sure the laws that are adhered to. There are some laws that have been around for a long time that now Carr is pointing out these laws are going to be far more strictly enforced than ever before. People are aware of these laws more than before, and so we need to make sure we're complying by what's already on the books. So let's look at a few. So there are state laws regarding compensation and referral fees. And I'm talking quite a bit here about referral fees. The Business and Profession Code 10137 states that it's unlawful for any licensed broker to compensate anyone who's not a licensed real estate agent. And so paying a referral fee to somebody for a referral of business, you got a friend and hey, I'll give you $1,000 if you don't forget to tell anybody you know about, referring me their business. If somebody referred you business and you're paying that and they're not a licensed person, that's already been against the law. I don't come upon that too much. I get asked that all the time. And most of the agents that I talk to, they understand. No, you really can't pay your neighbor $1,000 because he referred the other neighbor to you or something, or one of their relatives to you. That you can't pay that. Your neighbor's not a licensed agent, so that doesn't work. Now, a licensee may enter into agreement with another licensee to share compensation. However, that compensation must be paid through the broker. An agent is against the law for an agent who's affiliated with a broker to be paid directly by any principal or other agent. The other agent or the principal must pay it through the responsible broker. And again, that doesn't come up too often, but that's always been there. Whoops. Now, the Business Code 10176G, this is pretty serious. The DRE can temporarily suspend or permanently revoke a license if you take any secret, undisclosed amount of compensation, profit, and fail to disclose it to the buyer or the seller who contracts with you. So that's why this new form, one of the drivers behind that form is we need a way to disclose that we're getting compensation from some other source because you could lose your license if you fail to disclose that. And so that's pretty important. All compensation, including any lawful referrals are paid, must be disclosed. That DRE put that out as long ago as 2016. Now there's far more focus on that. Now, federal law, the one that most of you are familiar with is the RESPA. RESPA, the United States Code 2607, and that is nobody can give or accept a fee or a kickback for referring business on any transaction that involves a federally insured, federally related mortgage loan. Can't be done. So, oops, and so nothing in this section though can be interpreted as preventing a payment of referral fees between agents and brokers. When you read the law, you think at first, well, wait a minute, I can't, accept a referral fee or pay a referral fee to another agent who's referring me business, somebody in Northern California or somebody in another state. No, there's nothing in the law, and that's part of the law. They say that there's nothing illegal about agents referring and accepting referral fees agent to agent. That is okay. Now, Code of Ethics, Article 2, realtors should avoid concealment of any facts in the transaction, and compensation is a fact of any transaction, who's being paid and how much they're being paid. They're going to probably tighten Article 6. Article 6, it says that a realtor shall not accept compensation, rebate, or profit made with the client without the client's knowledge. And they're going to enhance that because Article 6 originally excluded referral fees. The board of directors of NAR voted to rescind this statement about excluding referral fees, and it went to the general advisory board after that, and it lost by one vote. So the conventional wisdom is the Code of Ethics will be amended very shortly as people get more and more focused on the fact that referral fees are being looked at and they need to be disclosed. Okay, so now let's look at a few forms regarding that. I just wanted to give you a little background on why there's such a focus on referral fees, because I'm going to talk about one form that's very important, and this form is now required in your broker transaction file, your transaction file. So that form is the RAD, the so-called RAD, the Realtor Acknowledgement and Disclosure, the RAD. Now, when I first heard about the fact that cars coming out with a RAD, it made me think of days in the past. When, what was rad? Boy, I remember I thought it was kind of rad in the old days. So I thought it was a pretty clever word. I didn't know what it was really. But rad stands for acknowledgement and disclosure of referral fees. So let's look at the rad in some detail. So in 1A, it talks about the difference between a realtor and someone who's not a realtor. And nobody on this call probably says this, but if you do yourself and me a favor. It's not realtor, it's realtor. And I still hear people who should know better, talking about the realtors. Well, there's no A after the L, so it's realtors. So we are all realtors, and so we're disclosing that we are, in fact, a realtor. And we are a member of what local association? So the San Diego, North County, Irvine, whatever association you are. Now, because car forms are available to non-realtors, uh, and it does contain some information that even non-realtors are responsible for disclosing. Like I just said, in fact, probably the weakest required regulation is the Code of Ethics. Code of Ethics kind of doesn't really address referral fees as directly as they probably should be, or it covered that. State law does. So even a non-realtor should be making these disclosures to be in compliant with the law, and they would, of course, check this box. And if they're a non-realtor, everybody on this call, of course, is a realtor, so you don't need to worry about B2. The second paragraph, it is an interesting form, add addition to the form, and that tells your principal that if you got a problem or an issue, you might want to reach out to my broker, my manager, my supervisor, or the contact person identified below. You can all put me down if you want for that contact person down below. Some of you who are mentees of Linda, you could put Linda's name down. That's okay. Uh, you have to do it. You do have to put a licensed individual down there, and they should be somebody that has some supervisory capacity. And what Carr wanted is to give the principal information about they're not stuck if they have a problem dealing with the agent. And nobody on this call, I think, is affected by not readily referring your clients to me or to Linda or somebody who can help you. In fact, I'm asked frequently, will I talk to the client? Of course I will. And, our goal is to resolve the issue and everybody wins. Uh, but I do know some agents, I don't know them personally, but I've experienced some agents who don't want their management or anybody else to be involved in the transaction. They don't want to tell anybody who their broker is. I've even had people tell me, I mean, it's kind of stupid. You can look it up. The public doesn't know that. And so when agents tell me, well, this friend of mine's got a problem with another agent, what should I tell them? Well, tell them to contact the broker of the office that agent's with. So anyway, this has now kind of been memorialized a little bit on a form, and that's kind of nice. It also says that they can reach out to the local association of realtors. I would hope that they talk with you and to me or to Linda before they call the local association with their issue. Paragraph 3. Now, this is, some disclosures about compensation. If you're getting compensation from multiple sources, then you would check this box. Now, you may not know you're getting compensation from multiple sources. So you sign a BRBC and you signed it for 2.5%. And on the RPA, the purchase contract, you want to make your contract look kind of competitive. So you talk to your client, and your client will pay the 0.5%, and we'll see if the seller will pay the other half. Well, when you did the RAD, this form here, you didn't know that. So you didn't check box 3A. So you would issue a second RAD. You know, if that offer was accepted, then the seller is now going to compensate you. They're going to pay the 2%, and your client has agreed to pay you the 0.5%. Well, you're getting compensation from more than one source. So then you do a second one and check box A. So the conventional wisdom is you're probably not going to be checking box A when you sign an RLA, a listing contract, or when you sign a buyer representation agreement, but you could very well go back to it. Now, if you are receiving any other compensation from another source, then you would also check 3A. Now, and then you check whether the source is, who's coming from, and insert that information. Now, this form also is very nice because agents tell me, oh, I forgot to tell them I have an ownership interest in the property, or my family member owns the property. What do I do? Well, in the past, I've told them, well, you can always just do that through escrow. Have escrow do an addendum in the escrow amendment to the escrow instructions that you are in fact a principal in the property. You have an ownership into the property. So now this is, and rather than you having to write it, this form gives you that opportunity. So you can check the box, I have an ownership interest in the property. Now, the person who signs this form is your client, not the other side. Okay. Now the other side would be notified of this as well through the escrow. All right. Now, referral fee paid to another broker if you're or being received from another broker. So this is the one where if you're receiving compensation, if you're being paid a referral fee, then you would check receiving compensation. If you're paying a referral fee, you would check paying compensation. My broker is paying compensation too, and the compensation amount. So the 2-1 may not be checked, but 2-2, 2-1 and 2-2 may not be checked. I'm sorry. C1 and C2. Let me got my brain caught up. So C1 and C2, you're not going to check both of them, but you are going to always fill in compensation amount. That always gets filled in, but one or two, only one of those is probably going to get accepted. You're not going to both receive a referral fee and pay the referral fee on the same transaction. That's pretty. I can't imagine how that would work. But you're always going to list the amount and or the percentage. And then, of course, the agent can sign for the broker. So you could sign this. And now this, remember, it set up earlier. I said that you're providing, hey, if we got a problem, you can talk to my manager, put in your manager, and that's where you'd put me down. Please don't put Mike down. Mike's always available if you have a problem and if we need to bring Mike in, but I would suggest, start with either me or Linda. And if you don't like what we're doing, by all means, I know, but I don't think that'll be a problem. Most of you know we both work pretty hard on resolving your issues and your problems. So list either me or Mike on this line. A telephone number. Please do not give out my cell number. I don't know what Linda's policy is, but to your clients, I don't usually provide that to clients. I'm available to your clients. I'm available by phone. I'll call on weekends, to your client if I need to, but I don't want my cell phone ringing. We got more than 150 agents, and some of you had 10, 12 clients. You can imagine if suddenly all my cell phone was ringing all the time. My email address, give that office email address, Walt@remaxconnections.ca.com, or Linda's email address. And then The seller or the buyer, your client signs this form. The other client does not need to sign this form. This is for your client. This is a client-specific form. So if you have any questions on that, we'll talk about that in the Q&A here in a moment. Okay, now the referral fee agreement, the RFA. So we'll take a quick look at that and review. That's been altered a bit. It had some previous improvements, and then they've made a few more changes. So one of the things they did previously is they helped clarify who the receiving broker is and the recipient broker. They used to use referring and recipient, and people got hung up with the recipient. Am I in receipt of the client, or am I in receipt of the money? And that was confusing. So Carr fixed that. So the referring broker, and then they explain it, the broker getting paid for referring a client. So the broker getting paid for referring the client. So I'm going to refer my client who wants to buy a house in Irvine, and I don't do business in Irvine, but I'm going to refer that client to one of our Irvine agents. Then I'm the referring broker, and I'm referring the client. Now, technically, it probably wasn't the best example in the world, because technically you do not need a referral agreement within the brokerage. You could do one if you want, but you don't need that, because the clients are broker specific, if you will. Technically, the clients are the clients of the broker. We know that they're your clients. We don't act as if they're our clients, not yours. Of course, they're your clients, but from the law is concerned, all the clients are the broker clients. So this would be where you're doing it between different offices. So we don't have an office in San Francisco, so maybe that'd be a better example. So I'm going to refer my client to a San Francisco uh, agent brokerage, and I'm getting paid for that referral. So I'm the referring agent, the referring broker, and the referring agent. The representing broker is the broker who's paying the fee and ultimately representing the principal. In this case, it would be the San Francisco agent and their brokerage. All right, so you identify the parties. And then the agreement's really pretty simple. The referral fee, is it a percentage or a dollar amount? And the compensation is owed if the principal has already entered into a contract to do, and you can check more than one, either buy or sell or lease a property. So you check whatever is appropriate. And I've seen a lot of referral fees where they got buy, sell, lease, all checked. So, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, the new addition to the form that is an interesting ad, and it probably protects agents who there's a misunderstanding. So you're referring an investor, and you're thinking that I'm referring my client, the investor, and he might buy more than one property, and I want the benefit of getting a referral fee for each property he buys. That's kind of a logical thought process, but the recipient broker, the agent who's accepting the referral, no, you referred me. We bought this house, and now he's going out and buying another house. I don't owe you a referral fee for that. So there was a bit of confusion, and that has come up. I've dealt with that more than one time. So this form was improved in this area. So the boilerplate is only the first transaction, the immediate transaction in hand. You can check a box for the following properties, and you can list all the properties. Or you can check a box for any and all properties purchased during the term of this agreement. And the term of this agreement is 12 months. So, and the compensation is paid when, the escrow closes, of course. So that's a nice little addition to the form. And then the referring broker. Now, this form, unlike the RAD, must be signed by the broker or someone who can sign for the broker. So email it to Lindsay, and we'll get it signed, or email it to Erica, and she'll get it signed for you. But you cannot accept or be responsible for paying a referral fee legally. You as an agent, it has to be the broker. So the broker has to sign the referral agreement. And likewise, when you're making referrals and you've got an agent who you're sending it to in San Francisco, you want to make sure the San Francisco broker signs this form, because the agent signing it does not bind the brokerage or the broker to paying you that referral fee. So keep that in mind. That's pretty important. All right, now just a couple of things on the residential listing agreement that have changed, and I want to run that past you real quickly. The first thing is on the compensation. I'm sorry, not one thing has changed. Well, there's been a couple things. That I'm thinking about the BRBC. I want to talk about the representation period. That has not changed in the RLA. The RLA, you can represent a client for up to 2 years. So that has not been an issue at all. Uh, don't recommend a 2-year listing contract, but I took 1 year myself when I did real estate. So what's been added to this form is that you're paying a referral fee related to representing the seller. So you see, again, you're disclosing that, and then the RAD. By the way, if you check this, the RAD's going to print automatically with these forms, and so then you would fill out the RAD. And so you're disclosing to your principal you're paying a fee in compliance with civil code. So that's pretty straightforward for you. Now, the other thing that changed that I wanted to talk about, and I've already talked about it, but the good news is your client may not understand these rules now, this law regarding altering images. So they're going to go in the MLS, or they're going to look at things and, well, why did you include a picture of the dead lawn? Come on, I want new pictures. I don't want no dead lawn. Oh no, I have to see. So that's in paragraph C, and that 12C. Whoops. And so that's where you inform your client that you have to, and the client is agreeing that you're going to do this, and you have no option. That you have to do that. This is not an optional law. You disclose it if you want. Don't disclose it. You're required to disclose it. So this digitally altered image paragraph was added to the listing contract, and I think the big benefit is you're going to have less confusion and complaints from your seller when they discover that we can't hide in our marketing the actual look of the property. That's kind of unfortunate, I suppose. But, because, you'd think, well, they're going to see it anyway. Why do I have to disclose, that the grass is dead? Why do I have to have an image of that? Because that's what the civil code says. All right, so that's part of the listing. Now, the multiple listing service addendum, the MLSA, it has had an addition to that and a clarification on page 3, which is the seller instructions to broker. And so there's a 3-page form, and page 3 starts the numbering of paragraphs all over again. So paragraph 2 on page 3, not paragraph 2 on page 1. An agent called me, and took me a while to figure out what the confusion was, because they couldn't understand why I was talking about paragraph 2 in one way, and they were looking at paragraph 2 and saying, there's nothing on paragraph 2 what you're talking about. And I didn't realize, oh, no, it's paragraph 2 of the instruction, which is page 3. So the marketing option, the first change is that the marketing option selected below should start at the beginning of the listing period. That's the boilerplate. So if you're going to delay market, off exclusive, or no delay at all, full exposure, because you didn't check any of these boxes. So if you don't check B, C, or D, then A is kind of covered a little bit, but that's immediately putting it in the MLS. So that will begin at the beginning of the listing period, or on the date specified. And then the other change is if you do take an office exclusive, listing, and a lot of you, and that's fine, you're taking it, but you're not taking it for the entire duration of the listing. You're just taking the listing now, and old rule is list now, and then fix it up and put it in the MLS later. But I always think agents make mistakes but of course you can do it if you want. But okay, I got this listing, but they're going to fix it up first. They want to, go on vacation, and when they come back from vacation, then they're going to, go on the market. So I'm going to go back there in a month and list it. Well, a lot can happen in a month. While they're fixing it up, their neighbor refers them without compensation to another agent, of course, because no one's breaking the law. And that other agent goes over and wows them. Next thing you know, the listing you thought you were going to get, you don't get. So the old rule is list now, fix it up, or do whatever you're going to do later. Is what my belief is. So if you list it now, and it'll be an office exclusive with limited exposure now, because we're not going to put it in the MLS. And so the boilerplate, so you got to check that for that to apply, of course. And then the boilerplate is do not market to the public during the listing period, or begin marketing it to the public with full exposure on such and such a day. So that's where you're keeping it off the market for 3 weeks, and then you're going live in the MLS. So you would check 2D2 on the instruction page, which is page 3, and then put that 2 weeks out. And if they decide to go on the market in 1 week, you simply do an MT and then alter the terms of the instruction page 3, paragraph 2, D2. I think Carr did a disservice by starting the numbering of paragraphs all over again on page 3. Makes it a little more confusing to identify on an MT, or like I said, in a conversation, what paragraph you're talking about. So then you change that. Now keep this in mind. This is interesting because this has come up twice in the last week, where agents are keeping it off the market for a few weeks while they fix it up, and then they want to bring it on the market as a coming soon. The rules of coming soon, I believe, in both MLSs, both CRMLS and San Diego MLS, require that if it's going to be coming soon, it has to be entered as a coming soon immediately. That you cannot make a delayed marketing and office exclusive that you are now going to make active after 2 weeks. You can't then put it in coming soon. So if you're keeping it off the market for 2 or 3 weeks to get it fixed up, whatever you're doing, you're not going to have the option of when you do put it on the market, you put it on at the coming soon first. So just keep that in mind. All right, and then other instructions. This is mostly about whether, visitors are not supposed to be taking images of the property, and we can't prevent that from happening, but we can certainly instruct the visitors not to photograph the property, and so they would check this box that that the photographs are limited to only the broker and to persons preparing appraisals and inspections. All right, the buyer representation compensation, or BRBC, that's where I got a little mixed up. I forgot, the BRBC does have a very restrictive representation period on it, because that's built in the civil code. So the civil code says 3 months. And so 3 months, I mean, if you list it on the middle of the month, then what is it, the middle of the 3rd month out? I mean, it's got a little confusing. And the DRE said, no, we don't go with the months, we go with the days. Because if you think about it, you could list something and back up. They said, we're going to go with days, and we're going to define a month the way it's defined in law and economics. Months are 30 days. Regardless of whether 31 or 30, if you're looking for a daily rate, you divide the rate by 30, not by whatever month you're in. It's always 30. So the DRE said, we believe months from a legal perspective are 30 days, but to eliminate any confusion, we're not going with the 3 months. We're going with 90 days, period. So the problem is people, you list it, if you list it January 1, well, no, let's just pick, not February is going to mess me up. If you list it in October, 31 days in October, 30 days in December, 31 days I mean, 30 days in November, 31 days in December, that's 92 days. 3 months is 92 days. So, you know, so you got to kind of clarify, is it 3 months? Is it 90 days or what? Well, the DRE has issued a regulation that an enlisting contract of more than 90 days is void and unenforceable. So you end up listing it in October and you end up messing yourself up because you got a couple of months there with 31 days. So Carr did you a big favor in the representation period. They stated that regardless of the beginning date and the ending date, it's 90 days or sooner. So if the ending date's 60 days out, well, then it's 60 days. If that date is 60 days out, rather. So beginning on, January 10th and ending on February 30th, well, that would be, 40 days, I think, if I did the math right. So don't worry about that. But if you're beginning it in, October 1 and ending December 31st, no, that's 92 days and you're unenforceable. You do all your work, you can't get paid. So the form says the buyer and the broker agree that regardless of the starting and ending date, it's 90 days or the ending date, whichever is sooner. So you end up always having an enforceable contract. Hope that's kind of clear for you. Now, the second change is the broker's paying a referral fee. You're advising your buyers that you're paying a referral fee for this buyer. So that box has been added as well. All right. Unsolicited offer attestation. San Diego agents probably not too concerned about this. Irvine agents maybe a little bit. There's a civil code. It was a governor's declaration, a governor order, and then that expired, and the civil code replaced that executive order. And the civil code expires at the end of this year. So the balance of this year, be aware of the fact that it is unlawful to solicit a seller by virtue of offering to buy a property from a property owner that hasn't previously indicated they want to sell their property. So that was to keep people with not the best intentions swooping in after these fires and taking advantage of people distressed and offering to buy their property, and of course probably buying it at a heavy, heavy, heavy discount. And the people are distraught as enough because they've lost their home in the fire, and now they've sold their property for less than maybe what was fair. So the legislature just made that illegal. You can sell a property in these zip codes, of course. Let's take a look at these zip codes. There they are listed at the top of the form. But in order to buy a property in these zip codes, the seller had to previous to your offer, indicated they want to sell. So, it doesn't affect listings. Listing agents go over and you can still list a property. Hey, if you want to sell, I don't have a buyer. Now you got to be careful with your language. Don't be going over and listing a property because I have a buyer, because that's an unsolicited offer. It's against the law. But you could say, look, if you're tired of this, you're tired of dealing with the building department, you still don't have permits yet, you just want to get out from under this, let me put the home on the market. And well, not home's gone. Let's put the property on the market, make a lot, and shouldn't laugh. And maybe we get a buyer for it. That's perfectly legal. It's the offer that's unsolicited that's illegal in those zip codes. So it's illegal to do that. So that this form covers the second part of the code, and that is that if in fact it's a lawful transaction, you've had the property listed or you want to list it. I want to sell this. I'm done with dealing with the building department. All right, that's a lawful transaction. You put it on the market, a buyer comes in, buys it, they're going to deal with the building department, they'll build a house on it. That's lawful. But a part of this law in these zip codes is that a uh, unsolicited offer attestation has to be recorded with the grant deed. So this would be a part of that particular transaction. And failure to record this document with the grant deed could make that transaction unenforceable, voidable. So this is very important in the very rare circumstances. And again, I would think the Irvine agents are more likely to be confronted with the situation. They have an opportunity to do some business in one of these zip codes. And it doesn't have to be a house that burned down in these zip codes. It could just be a regular house in one of these zip codes. You've got to be sure that the attestation is executed and then provided. And there is a sort of a description of what this is all about. Got any questions, reach out to me. And I think escrow sometimes participates in these calls. Our escrow is going to be, be sure they're aware of the fact that if they record any transaction in the next year, until December 31st of this year, this attestation must be recorded at the same time. Unaware of whether this form has to be notarized or not, my suggestion would be to get it notarized. The civil code wasn't clear on that, didn't state either way on that. Okay. Buyer and seller sign that. Okay. Folks, that wraps it up. It took a little longer than I thought, but I did finish on time. But Lindsay, do we have some questions?
We do. So Sunshine was wondering, in for digitally altered photos, what about the sky? If you change the sky as far as adding clouds or removing clouds or sunset.
That's a good question, and I suspect, I mean, I'm going to go with car legal. That question was all actually brought up. Uh, and if the photographer happened to go out there on a cloudy day and take a picture, and you uh, removed all that gray clouds and made some nice sunny skies, that's probably not a digitally altered photo. That's probably okay. I wouldn't worry too much about it. The law's not real clear. The one thought I had, depending on how risk adverse you are, if you sell a property on the coast and it's got June gloom and you have a nice sunny sky there, and then the buyer buys in and they find out, oh my gosh, every day I get up and June gloom, July gloom, I mean, it's cloudy all the time. You know, the picture was sunny. Could they complain? They might, but I suspect the sky's okay.
Do you know if you can link the original photos in CRMLS?
I don't know for sure in the CRMLS. I apologize, uh, Lindsay. We might check on that and put out an announcement. But CRMLS has a landing, has the MLSs are very aware of this law, and so there's you can go to CRMLS and right at the front they talk about complying with this law. So you just go into the administrative side of the CRMLS, and you will be able to find that out.
On vacant land, many of the photos have a red line around the lot that's being advertised. Is that an altered photo?
Uh, a red line around the lot. Do you have a
Yeah,
photo
like
of
an aerial, it'll be like an
oh,
aerial
and you're putting a
shot
red
of
line
vacant land
around
and
it?
then a red, yeah, line around the
No, I would
lot.
not think so. Now, if you obliterated the adjacent property, that would definitely be altered. So you blurred out what's not part of your, no, I wouldn't do that. But just putting a red line around your lot, that's not altered.
When you make the disclaimer, can it be something generic like this image has been digitally altered, or does it have to be more specific?
You can say this image has been digitally altered. Yeah.
And then will there be a list of sample disclaimers in Agent Hub?
Well, that's a good question, Lindsay. We can make that happen,
Yeah,
right?
sure. If you give them to me, I'll put them in there.
Yeah, and notice how I said we, but Lindsay's doing all the work. Let me tell you, I couldn't do this without her help.
And then Bibiana asks, she typically takes professional photographs once the home is staged. So
Mhm.
now with the new law is, do you recommend having photos taken before and after staging?
Well, that's an interesting question. So you're taking, I mean, you'd want to disclose that these photos include staging provided by a private company, and probably disclose that. I don't, you're not altering the photos. They're not digitally altered because you're photographing property after you staged it. So I'm not sure you'd have to have before and after, as long
Because
as there's actually furniture in the house. But I would for sure disclose that the pictures include staging that was placed in the property prior to the photos being taken. Make that long of a statement.
Emily Zach raises the point that if the house is vacant and then you stage it, you've changed the appearance of the property and improved it.
Right. But the question is if well, but you physically put the furniture in.
I see. So,
See, that's
right.
the
So
difference. You're taking a
you didn't
picture of what's
put,
actually
yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah.
but
You
you
didn't,
should probably point out that that furniture is there and
gotcha.
professionally staged.
Okay. This is a similar question. What if the home is professionally staged and in the MLS with photos, then you remove the staging after 30 days? Does the agent have to have new photos with the property unstaged or vacant, or can it just stay in the MLS with the staged photos?
I think you need new photographs once you remove the staging.
Okay. And even she says maybe make a statement somewhere that says this was previously staged but is now and now has no furniture in it.
Yeah, but I would not have photos in the
Okay.
MLS of a previous, that's like having photos of the seller before me, their furniture.
Hmm.
Their furniture so much nicer than mine. Let's use the same photos, exact same house, but it'll be the previous owner's furniture because mine's not as fancy. No, that'd be a misrepresentation.
Okay. Do we still need to complete a coming soon form for CRMLS since the RLA has now changed?
Uh, a complete, a coming soon form for, well, you have to notify. I'm not sure when you say complete a
I think
coming
there's an
soon form.
MLS exclusion still for coming soon. Oh, no, coming soons are in the MLS.
Yeah, they're not excluded. They're
Yeah.
just excluded from
Yeah,
being
I'm not sure. That
published.
was a question from Jeannie. If Jeannie's still on, can you elaborate or let us know about that form? She's unmuted.
Sorry, I don't know if you guys,
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
We hear you now.
I have two computers set up. So when you have a coming soon in CRMLS, they want you to do a coming soon form. It's a separate form just to have
Mhm.
in your file. Since this is now included in the revised listing agreement, I'm wondering if that coming soon separate document is no longer necessary.
I would argue, I mean, you could check with the CRMLS, we could check as well, but I would argue if that form is still what they want to use, it doesn't matter what's on the listing contract. You want to execute the form the CRMLS wants you to execute.
Okay, it's nothing that we submit to them. It's just something we keep in our file. So I'll reach out to them and see what they
Right.
say.
And the
Then do
reason that's a nice point you made, but let me make this general announcement to people. There are times where they want you to have in your file these kinds of forms, but they don't want them submitted because they got
Mhm.
thousands of listings. But they want, if there's a complaint later, they want to be able to go to you and say, "Where's your form?" So the fact that you don't have to submit it, if they tell you to execute this form, I wouldn't, but I don't have to submit it. I wouldn't take that as, oh, I don't need to worry about the form because ultimately they want that form available to them if they need it.
Okay, thanks, Walt.
Yeah. Mhm.
Regarding the BRVC, if you have to keep extending it because you're working with the buyers for a long time, you
Mhm.
use the MTBR, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
Um,
regarding extensions, by the way, you can delay the starting date of the BRBC. So somebody says, I want to buy a house, and Walt, I want you to help me, but I'm taking January off. Okay, but you want to start looking in February? Yeah, well, let's get a contract. I want to go to work for you. I'll even do a little work ahead of time. I don't, and so we're going to, sign it up for starting February 1. And of course, it's 90 days out. So I'll count 90 days, but if I end up putting the months and I end up with 92 days or something like that, doesn't matter. I'm okay. I can do that. And that contract's valid. It doesn't go into effect, by the way, until February 1. Now, if they buy a house in January 25, I'm out. Too bad for me. But that can go into effect. Extensions go into effect when they're signed. And if you think about that, the reason for that is we don't, without we, I don't, I feel bad. I don't like the 90-day rule. The DRE does not want agents to, okay, I'm going to list you buyer, I'm going to have you sign a BRBC, and then I'm going to do 3 extensions. It'll be a 1-year BRBC, or, each one 90 days, right? And I'm going to do them all right now. Ha ha ha. I got to type. No. Those go into effect the day they're signed. So you can't stack them up, if that makes sense to you.
so since the law started January 1st, should all our new listings have these things implemented with anything coming soon and new listings?
Okay, I'm not, okay. The question confuses me. I'm not sure. What law? The law that
The
the
digitally
digital
altered
image law?
photos.
So do we have to do that? The digital image law doesn't have much to do with coming soon. It has everything to do with any image that you publish in any form. So I'm not sure what the question is. If whoever asked it can unmute themselves.
We can come back if
Okay.
she's unavailable.
But
Okay,
if you have a, yeah, but let me just address this if this is the question, but you should know it. So you have a listing that started in October of last year, and you got photographs in the MLS now? Yes. You have
oh,
to go back in and do all this altered image stuff. Any image starting January 1 has to be disclosed, whether if it's been altered, and the unaltered image available by either posting it adjacent or providing a digital website URL, QR code.
yeah, that was the question. She
Okay.
clarified that, should she go back
You
and,
got to go back. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Let's see. Do the staging comments need to be in public remarks or confidential remarks?
No, they're on the photo. They're adjacent to the photo. Yeah.
Just to confirm, if we want our listing to go on as a coming soon, when we take the listing, it needs to go on immediately. No
Yes.
delay is allowed, correct?
Right. That's correct.
Let's see. Jeannie has a listing that we canceled in 2025 and she's relisting it this month. Nothing has changed in the home. Can she use the previous photos that she paid for last year, or does she need to disclose that they're from 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to trust you. You're a smart lady, so I'm gonna trust it. Yeah, no, if I took photos today and I compared them to 2 years ago, it's the exact same image. I mean, it looks the same. Yeah, you could use those images.
Kim wants to just confirm that if the BRBC has expired and you're still working with the client, she just needs to do an extension.
Yes. Oh, well, if it's expired,
You have to do a new one,
you got to
right?
do a new one because you can't extend a contract that doesn't exist. So once that's a great question, by the way, because this comes up all the time. Comes up with listing contracts. You know, they expired 3 weeks ago, but they've decided they want to sell anyway. I'm going to do an extension. No, you can't do that because you don't have the contract. So yeah, if it is actually expired, so you do an extension to go, ideally to take full advantage of a 90-day extension, you're going to do it on the last day of the current deal. But if you do it a week ahead of time, then you are only at 90 days from that week ahead. You don't have 90 days tacked on to the end of the week of your last week of the first 90 days, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
extensions go into effect the day they're signed.
So
Kim
Walt,
has a comment.
if I had extended it before the 90 days was up, then I could have done extension. Is that right?
If you did what,
Yes.
say again?
Got it. If I would have done the extension prior to the 90 days being up, then I could have done an extension versus a new one, right?
Yeah, before
Yeah.
the 90 days are up,
Got it.
exactly.
Okay, good to know.
And then finally, Marty has a question. Marty, do you want to unmute yourself? Ask your question. I think he's attempting to.
Is he there?
Yeah, he's there. Marty, I think you're muted. Do you want to unmute and ask your question? No, I guess not.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
can you
there
hear
you
me
go.
now?
There we go. Yes,
Hey,
we can hear
Marty.
you.
All right. Just a bit confused because the way I look at it, the merit of realtors, we are all salespeople. That's the fact. We, as a listing agent, our job is to represent our seller in the best possible way, market his home and get the best price for them, right? So if we're marketing, if I as a listing agent try to sell my client's house, I do my best to make sure that house gets its best value with a higher qualified buyer. I think if a buyer's agent, if a buyer's agent come in and you look at the pictures and you see these pictures of beautiful night, whatever, I think it should be the buyer's agent to go back and get a new sets of pictures and stuff like that. Because why would the listing agent do all of that? I mean, you're working against your client's interest.
Well, Marty, there's a fundamental
Because
law
as a
in
listing as
marketing.
possible, the best possible way my client's property shows, best pictures, whatever. So if you are a buyer agent and you're presenting a buyer, so the buyer agent should come in and actually tell his buyer that, "Oh, look, this property you see, it looks all done up. So here's a news picture." Why wouldn't it be like that?
Because, Marty, there's a fundamental concept in marketing, and it's in the civil code, it's in the code of ethics, and that is you have to be truthful. So I've got a house, and I mean, let's take it to an extreme. Sometimes it's easier to understand something, you take it to the extreme. I've got a house that some would argue is a little bit on the small side. It's not big. I love it. It's neat and compact. My wife loves it. It's less room for me to clutter up with my junk. But if I'm going to sell it, boy, it'd be more beautiful if I put a really nice family room on the back of that house. So why don't I just digitally add a family room to my house?
We have to
Well,
disclose
because
that.
it's not there. Well, people make offers, and then of course they have an opportunity to find out, well, Walt was lying, he never had it. But then I passed up on a house that had a family room and really was there. Now I know that's an extreme example, but I use that deliberately because when you make an inaccurate representation, people have a right to rely on it being accurate. So if I say, boy, this carpet's beautiful in my picture, but when they go over there, it's kind of dungy and gray and doesn't look good. Well, wait a minute. Now I got to buy new carpet. See, so I, it is the marketer's responsibility to present
Well,
in the code, the
we
term is true picture. What you market has to be a true picture. And what the civil code kind of correctly said, suddenly with digital altering, there are pictures. I'll give you another example. It's not quite so extreme. There's an ugly power pole behind a property, not mine.
Right.
But let's just say there's one of those towers where what do they call them? The waves come off and people are worried, oh, I'll give me cancer. I don't know if it will or not. But that tower is right behind the house. I've sold houses in front of one of those towers.
Yeah,
Imagine somebody going in there and removing that tower from the view from the backyard.
but
That's really
I would argue
dishonest. I'm sorry.
I would argue any buyer wants to buy a home, they're not going to buy a home on what they see on the picture of the computer. They actually physically go and inspect the home.
Well, Marty,
Inspect the
that
home.
is you want to think transparency, honesty. Marketing is presenting
I'm
it.
all for it, but
Okay.
I'm just trying to clarify a few things.
Yeah.
If a buyer buy a home, it goes in and look at the house there, and then the seller have to disclose everything on SPQ and other forms, AVID, so everything is disclosed and
Right. Well, we could have this conversation privately, you and I
everything is
later,
transparent.
but for the
So
record,
I cannot understand why.
you've got to present a true picture of the property from the get-go. You don't embellish the property and let the buy. See, that's sort of a buyer beware. Boy, this carpet is nice and new and it's beautiful, but buyer, you better take a look at that carpet because that's not really what it looks like. That's buyer beware. That does not exist in almost any state now, but it hasn't existed in California for dozens of years. It's seller disclose, seller be honest, seller give me a true picture of your property. In disclosures, you're focusing on disclosures. Good, that's good. But also in the marketing, don't market an untrue picture. So anyway, we can talk later, but I
Okay.
want to stress that you, everybody on this call, and I know all of you agree, you've got to keep in mind you're responsible for a true and accurate representation of the property. All right, any other questions, Lindsay?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Well, folks, thanks a lot. I
Thank you,
appreciate a lot
Walt.
of you stuck
Thank you,
around,
Walt.
and have a great, great rest of the day, rest of the week. Go Steelers. They're in. Yay.
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Yay,
Yeah, that's
yay, yay.
fantastic.
Go, go,
The number one seed.
Los Angeles Chargers.
Oh,
Go
yeah.
Rams.
All right.
All right.
Bye, everybody. Have a
Take
good
care.
week.
Bye-bye,
Thank you.
folks.
Thank you, Walt.
Uh-huh.